Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. 76ers star Joel Embiid is out indefinitely because of fractured right orbital bone and a mild concussion. Welcome former NBA Coach of the Year, Avery Johnson, is a player who helped the Spurs win a title in 1999. Your reaction here to Joel Embiid out indefinitely, fractured right orbital bone and a mild concussion, Avery?
Yeah, I think this is more, and I'm not a medical doctor, not claimed to be one, but I think this is more about the concussion than the fracture. Sure, fracture sounds bad. I've seen a lot of guys in this situation, but whenever you talk about concussions, I think the concussion is more than just mild, than it has to do with the fracture. So this is a tough situation. Whenever you're talking about head injuries, that's a pause. Everybody hits the pause button. So this is going to take some time. We just don't know how much time it's going to take for Joel Embiid to get back on the floor after having an outstanding game to close out the Toronto Raptors in 6 games to force an opportunity for them to play against the Miami Heat.
Yeah, so if there was no concussion involved here, would you just be looking at a situation where he puts a mask on and he plays through it?
Oh, absolutely, Hakeem. Yeah, if there's no concussion involved, guys, I've seen guys, I think years ago, Hakeem Olajuwon had something similar. You put on a mask. As tough as the injury is, you try to protect the player as much as possible. But when you categorize this situation and you just isolate it to just an orbital situation, that's different than when it's combined with a concussion, whether mild or severe. So again, Joel Embiid have proven to us that he will play injured. This guy has to have surgery on his hand after the season. So for him to miss game 1, then there's something wrong. And I think is leaning more towards the concussion part and the concussion protocols more than it is the orbital situation.
No timetable for his return, but if you were to put some sort of timetable on this, and look, I know you are not a doctor, but you've seen these types of injuries. What would you speculate in terms of how many games he misses? Could he, in fact, miss the entire second round? Are they looking at a situation where Embiid does not play at all against the Miami Heat here in the second round?
Well, we don't know the severity of the concussion, and we're not going to. Here on CBS Sports HQ, we're not gonna act like we know how severe it is. But the looks of it on the surface, I would say, and if I was a betting man, he's definitely out for games 1 and 2, unless there's some sort of a miracle and the concussion and he passes all of the different tests to get back on the floor. So I'm going to be under the assumption that he's going to fly back to Philadelphia, stay in Philadelphia, and, the 76ers, led by James Harden, is going to have to go down to Miami and get a split without Joel Embiid. I would be very surprised if he shows up for game 2 of this series. I would think at minimum he would start to play starting in game 3 at home.
All right, well, you may not be a betting man, but I am. So I'm going to take your information and put it in my mind and look to put money in my pocket here, because now, of course, this is going to change the spread in favor of Miami, at least in game 1. What does this mean for James Harden? Because as you remember, Joel Embiid called out James Harden. He wanted to be more aggressive. Well, he was more aggressive in game 6. He stepped up to the call, double-double. He had 22 points, 15 assists, 16 rebounds, 6 rebounds in that closeout game. This puts now a lot of pressure on James Harden and Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, that was the first time in this series where I looked at James Harden's body of work and said he was at least close to being what he was in Houston. I've been saying all along that he looked like he's about 75% or playing like he's 75 years old. All right, let me reduce that. He looked like he was about 90% and playing like he's about 38 years old. And that's okay. So we're moving him in the right direction. But James Harden moved well. I look at his lateral movement on defense. He's not a defensive player, but I look at his lateral movement when he's in switching situation. How does he go after rebounds? How does he go after loose balls? Is he attacking the basket? Got the basket and finished a couple of times. We know he's capable of the step back 3-point shot, but he got his teammates involved. Those assists, pinpoint passes, not bad passes, because when you're fatigued, you're out of shape, you're not yourself, those passes will be high or low or off target. His passes were on time and on target. So this was the closest that I've seen James Harden play to his normal self in quite a long time.
I'm curious how this is going to impact Miami as well, right? Because they're going to change their approach somewhat. I know you're not going to change a lot, but if you're Eric Spoelstra and you being a former NBA Coach of the Year and Jimmy Butler sat out of that Game 5, the closeout game against Atlanta because of knee inflammation, if you're Eric Spoelstra here, Avery, are you thinking about, hey, I might pull back on the minutes here for Jimmy Butler in Game 1, knowing that Joel Embiid's out?
No way possible. If Jimmy Butler's ready to go, you got to take the money in the bank. You got to play Jimmy Butler, play him his normal minutes, and get him back on the court. Look at what the Phoenix Suns did. They could have held Devin Booker back and say, okay, well, let's take our chances with Game 6, and we know we got Booker, and give him a couple of more days rest just in case, we stub our toe in Game 6 against the Pelicans, and we'll bring him back for Game 7. No, Monty Williams said, okay, you're ready to play, even if you're not 100%. Even you're not going to play your normal minutes or score 40 points, but if you can give us 13, if you can score and hit that big 3-point shot with a minute 43 to go in the game and make some free throws at the end to go along with CP3's 14 from the field, we'll take it. That's what Eric Spoelstra is saying. Jimmy Butler, they got to go up 1-0. Because these games are very cyclical. Series can change in a heartbeat. And the best thing you can do to ensure that you protect home court is play Jimmy Butler in Game 1. If he can walk and chew gum, he should be ready to play in Game 1.
See, it's woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? If Philadelphia had closed out Toronto in Game 5, we don't have a Game 6. Joel Embiid doesn't get injured. He's ready for Game 1. I feel like there's always something that happens with this team. Like just when you start to get on the bandwagon with Philadelphia, when you're like, man, they're getting over the hump, it's an injury or something happens or there's some sort of a mistake happens or some just ill-timed event that happens for them, right? Because this has really been peak for them at this point, having James Harden. Like, this is a great shot for them to get the Eastern Conference Finals. And from the outside looking in, you're sitting here going, how are they going to beat Miami if Joel Embiid misses 1 or 2 games?
And 2 things happen. One, Danny Green got back to playing, Danny Green type of basketball, 4 threes. He's got to knock down shots. He and Tyrese Maxey, they got to play at a high level because that takes pressure off of the star players. James Harden can't get an assist unless Embiid, when he's available, or Maxey or Danny Green, those guys got to be able to make shots. That's what assists are all about. And even sometime a hockey assist. And then the second thing that happened to Philadelphia in a little bit of a weird way, when the media start talking about Doc Rivers' record about closing out games, he had to defend himself. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see how his players stepped up and dominated Toronto in that game to take care of their coach, because a lot of us was coming from the media, because I've been in those situations before. It's not always the coach. Sure, the coach has to take responsibility, but sometimes it's injury, it's officiating, it's momentum swings, it's things that the coach can't necessarily control. He owned up to it, but in a weird way, his team came out and really fought hard for their coach, and they dominated Toronto to close out that series.
Well, this is certainly tough news for Philadelphia. Certainly put some respect on Doc Rivers' name, but this is going to be tough here, at least Game 1, without Joel Embiid again, out indefinitely with a fractured right orbital bone and a mild concussion. Avery Johnson joined us here on CBS Sports HQ with the insight. And here's a look at the series schedule. Again, Game 1 set for Monday in Miami. They split the regular season series. James Harden, of course, did not play in any of those games. Now the burden, the pressure falls squarely on his shoulders in Game 1, as they will play without Joel Embiid again, out indefinitely, fractured right orbital bone, mild concussion, no timetable for his return.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.